A narcissistic husband can be very difficult to live with, given his inability to empathize with his spouse's needs. Narcissists are famous for lacking empathy, which means they don't understand how their actions affect their loved ones. They believe their loved ones should be doing their best to glorify the narcissist. They often feel entitled to a certain level of respect, but they are offended by the slightest disagreement or pushback on their agenda. That makes it tricky for loved ones to navigate the emotional minefield that is part of living with a narcissist. Why does a narcissistic husband behave so unpredictably? Narcissists live in almost constant fear that someone will reveal the ugly truth about their real nature. On a deep level, they believe themselves to be hopelessly flawed, and they fear that will be revealed to the world. They are constantly guarding against that happening. They become hypervigilant and, as a result, hypersensitive. They are fearful of any true intimacy because someone who can get that close can easily reveal the narcissist's flawed self. The narcissist keeps even a spouse at a distance. This is part of why they behave in such an unpredictable nature. It's a technique they can use to confuse and distract anyone from getting too close. They obfuscate their spouse and other family members to keep them from even wanting to get closer. For the spouse of a narcissistic husband, it's a minefield they have to navigate on a daily basis. They must walk on eggshells to keep from setting off their narcissistic spouse. It creates an atmosphere of distrust and fear, and it prevents any true growth in the relationship. How can you protect yourself from a narcissistic husband? If you believe you have a narcissistic husband, and whether he is physically violent or not, there are certain steps you can take to protect yourself. It's important to realize that you don't deserve the way you're being treated, and you should always keep the option of leaving him on the table. Here are several things you can do to protect yourself from your narcissistic husband. Number 1, manage your expectations. The first thing you need to do to have a better relationship with a narcissistic husband is to manage your expectations for the relationship. Your husband will never be able to empathize with your needs, nor will they be able to recognize your good character traits. Narcissists also fear intimacy, so they won't be able to get close to you in the way you might expect a spouse to be. These are the needs you will have to get met through other relationships. Moreover, your narcissistic husband will need you to compliment them in just about every way possible. If you aren't able to tell them how great they are almost constantly, they will perceive it as offensive. To continue in the marriage, you have to know that your narcissistic husband will not change, and you have to manage your expectations. It's not fair, for sure, but it is the reality of the situation. Your narcissistic husband can never take responsibility for anything that goes wrong because it threatens his already fragile self-esteem. He can't focus on what you need because he is too busy managing his own needs related to propping up his self-esteem. Number 2, be a gray rock. The gray rock method is one in which you minimize your reactions so that you become uninteresting to an abusive person like your narcissistic husband. Narcissists love to create drama and get a rise out of the people around them. If you give the narcissist what they want, they will keep pushing those buttons. When you stop reacting, they lose interest and move on to someone else. That's the gray rock method. It can be difficult because you have to control your own normal reactions, but if you can do it, it can be remarkably effective. It also prevents the narcissist from accumulating more ammunition they can use against you. They have already learned too much about what bothers you, and each time you react emotionally, you give them more ammunition to be used against you as a manipulation tool. Number 3, revise your communication strategy. It's important to understand how to talk to your narcissistic husband. You need to keep your tone neutral and try to not waffle on your position. You should also avoid debating or defending yourself. Your narcissistic husband will see any debate, justification, or attempts to defend yourself as a weakness. They will perceive it as you realizing that there is a weakness in your argument. If you waffle at all on your position, they will see that as you admitting the fallacy of your argument. You also need to be extremely clear in what you're saying. If you leave any room for interpretation, your narcissistic husband will exploit that. He will always interpret it through his distorted lens, and it won't be even close to what you intended to say. It's also important to stand your ground. Once you've decided on a course of action, don't back down. Narcissists only respect strength. While you might think you are being reasonable and open to changing your mind if he can persuade you to do so, he sees that as you being indecisive because your argument is weak. Number 4, encourage your children to speak openly with you. Narcissistic husbands will often try to use your own children against you. Narcissists of all kinds love to use triangulation to undermine relationships. They will tell you one thing and someone else a different story altogether. They will do this with their own children as well. Rather than wasting your breath by trying to convince your narcissistic husband of the virtues of responsible co-parenting, it's better to let your children know that you are willing to talk about any concerns they have. You should encourage them to speak openly to you about anything they hear about you that disturbs them. That way, you can address any claims your narcissistic husband makes about you before they start to interfere with your relationship. Let them know that you understand they might hear things that make them uncomfortable, even from their own father, but you are willing to be open and honest with them about anything they hear. You may also want to let them know that they can come to you with anything their father does that makes them feel uncomfortable or frightened. Number 5, trust your gut. When something doesn't feel right, listen to that intuition. Narcissists love to use gaslighting to make you doubt your own interpretations and sense of reality. They can make you feel as though you're going crazy, but it's not you, it's them. Learn how to trust your gut when you sense that something is not right. Believe in yourself and listen to that inner voice that's warning you. If you let the narcissist make you doubt yourself, you are at risk of falling into a pattern of codependency. Codependent people put their own needs on hold to appease an abusive person in their life. They become people pleasers who are just trying to keep the peace. Unfortunately, with a narcissist, there is no keeping the peace. No matter what you do, it won't ever be enough. Even if you devoted every waking minute to trying to please your narcissistic husband, he wouldn't be satisfied. The sooner you realize that, the better off you will be. Number 6, set and maintain clear limits. Narcissists don't even know what boundaries are, and they certainly don't respect them. Most narcissists weren't allowed to have any boundaries as a child, so they never learned about respecting other people's limits. They see most people as mere extensions of their own identity, so they don't think they should have boundaries. They believe they should be able to intrude on any part of your life, and they will do just that until you put a stop to it. Only you can decide what your limits are, but when you do, determine the consequences you will enforce for any boundary violations. Then you can give the narcissist a written copy of the boundary and the consequences for violations. Be sure to enforce them every time a violation occurs. Even one moment of weakness will give the narcissist an excuse to keep pushing until you give up. And number 7, take time away. When you have a narcissistic husband in your life, you're going to need some time away from him to recharge your batteries and refresh yourself. It's important that you take the time you need. It can be exhausting to be around a narcissist for any length of time. Their distorted view of the world can be confusing and draining. That's why you need to get away from time to time. Take a weekend to spend with friends, or even just take a walk out in nature without him by your side. You will need that precious time to yourself to recharge your batteries. You also want to engage in other self-care practices, such as getting regular exercise or meditation. These are vital for your emotional and physical well-being. In the end, life with a narcissistic husband is full of abusive manipulation and attempts to control you. You must take the appropriate steps to protect yourself and other family members from his toxicity. Controlling your reactions is a key way to prevent his abuse, but that can be difficult to do. Many people suffer from the consequences of emotional wounds they suffered early in life. These can be used to manipulate and control them. I've created a 5-step roadmap to heal emotional triggers that can help you identify your emotional triggers and diffuse them so that others can't use them to control you. This handy guide will help you identify, diffuse, and heal emotional wounds, and it's free. Just click on the link below this video and I'll send a copy directly to your inbox. Thanks for watching.